Hello viewers, this is Marianne from Revealing Light Tarot. Tonight I'd like to read on the migrant children who were separated from their parents at the border. I've had many requests over a number of months to read on the children. I have read before when the crisis was at its worst, I guess. And the children were actually behind cages, and we had those images, those distressing images coming forward. Of course, today I'm reminded of what's at stake here. 2.5-year-old baby, a baby died while in border custody. He's not the first. So I guess the questions that I have, including those that may be profiteering from this crisis in any way. John Kelly is now on the board of one of these detention camps, these businesses, these big businesses who operate these detention camps. Of course, he's ex-Guantanamo Bay, and we know his history there. He drove fairly harsh immigrant policy when Trump was first elected. Let's not forget ICE and what went on at the airports. And of course, it was so draconian it had to be wound back because the courts would not uphold it. So let's not forget Kelly's role in all of this. What was he? 3-star general, something like that. 3 or 4. He wasn't 5-star anyway. But back to the children. I guess the questions have raged over the months from, will they be okay and will they be reunited with their parents, to are they being used in some nefarious way, such as human trafficking? Are they safe in the border custody? What's going on behind closed doors? Let's have a look at some of those questions and see why that policy originated in the first place. Was it for the obvious, to deter asylum seekers? If they knew that they were going to have their children taken away, they wouldn't come. Was that the reason? Let's start with our first question. Are the children in custody that were separated from their parents, are they safe? Are the children that were separated from their parents, some, we saw some as young as 3 years old, very, very young, being taken from their mums, put in front of courts when they couldn't even speak the language. Oh dear. Are they safe now? Are they safe in these detention centres? So we've got Judgment as our signifier card. I'll bring the laptop down. We have Judgment. So months after the fact, we are still, Trump is still being judged for his actions. Trump and the Trump government are being judged. They are challenged, I think, by those groups that are now taking cases before the law. They're also judged by that judge who actually ruled that they would need to reunite every single last one of those children. They're being judged harshly is the message of these cards. Now there's a death card here, and I don't like that coming forward. I asked if they were safe. We'll get some clarification on that, because that could simply mean that something is ending. I would say their childhood and their innocence is ending, being incarcerated in cages. Now in the past we've got the Sun card here, which is really around childhood innocence. I think this is before they were separated. They are innocent people in all of this. We certainly have some kind of truth needing to be told here, and this is a slow, as you know. Unfortunately, it's a slow prizing of the truth. This is only a page. It's not a king or queen. Unfortunately, we've got a slow prizing or open of the truth here. The immediate future, we've got the absolute despair I fear, of parents and children here. This is loss. This is actually a grieving kind of loss. When someone loses a loved one, often it comes forward when they lose a loved one to death, by death. Now, I think this card is signifying that the wrenching away of children from parents was actually akin to this kind of thing, this kind of grief. Why we would have income sources here, I don't know. But this leads me to my next question. It's the question around what is the issue? There is some truth needing to be told. What is the situation at the moment? New income sources. So we've got truth needing to be told and income sources. The environment around other lovers. Oh dear. So I guess what I'm picking up so far from this reading is that the detaining of children at the border is actually a business opportunity. It's for some. Now, I haven't looked into who has won these contracts, but we do have John Kelly on the board, so we'll frame a question shortly. The hopes and fears is the distress itself. This is our anxiety. This matter keeps people up at night. It not only has locked parents into months and months and months of abject anxiety and stress, it's also caused that for right-thinking people around the world. Because we want to do something to protect these children. The activist and the advocate in all of us want to protect these children. We cannot understand why this has happened in the first place. Now, the Page of Wands is suggesting it's a messenger card. It's new inspiration and enthusiasm, suggesting that it may. Now, I haven't looked at what's going on in the background. Who's got certain cases before the courts? But organisations and refugee advocate groups potentially are working behind the scenes here. Now, the Six of Swords is a relocation. This is the travel. This is almost like the migrants here. Almost hopping into a boat with nothing but the clothes on their back and relocating. Seeking solace, seeking sanctuary. And we've got the Empress card here, suggesting a period of time, perhaps when things will be revealed. And what's hidden from our view are potentially income sources. Again, money's coming into the frame. So I'm going to ask, so are they safe? There's certainly some sort of truth that needs to come out. I'm not clear on this death card, so I'm going to ask for some clarity here. I'll just pull some cards from another deck. All right, the death card is the foundation of the reading. So can I have some clarity, please? The death card is the foundation of the reading. Are these children safe? Could I have some clarity, please? Oops. Okay, the Page of Wands is suggesting that the time when children could be, again, this is our outcome card, suggesting that there is inspiration to help these children. There are groups here with matters before the courts. There are judges here that are ruling very harshly on the Trump government. And the clarification for the death card seems to be that the time when children could be caged and ripped from their parents' arms is actually going to be ending. It's ended. The death card is an ending. So, are they safe? I'm not seeing the Tower card. I do feel that there's some kind of truth that needs to be told here. And I do feel it's around those that are making money from this situation. Why is John Kelly on that board? So let's ask the question. I'll just give these cards a shuffle. Are there businesses who are profiting from the border crisis, from the children being separated from their parents? Are there businesses profiting that are known in Republican circles, that are close in some way, deals done underneath the table, businesses profiting from the detaining of asylum seekers, well, from the separating of children from parents and the detaining of these children in camps? Okay, right, so we've got work, and this is the Eight of Pentacles, suggesting that this is part of someone's work. The challenge to that is illumination. The Judgment card is that they are being judged, and I think people are thinking, this is why this question's coming forward more and more to me, people are wondering precisely this when it was outed, I guess, or revealed that John Kelly was on the board of one of these camps, one of these businesses who run these camps. Of course, people are judging now. People are wondering, people are judging. Now, in the past, we've got the sorrow, the grief and the loss here, which I felt very heavily at the beginning of this reading. Profiteering off someone's loss. We've got the family card here. We've got the Knight of Swords, suggesting in the immediate future that we're going to be hearing more about these families who were separated. Page of Cups, suggesting some kind of offer it has been made. And we've got secrets to be revealed. Okay, so behind closed doors, potentially there could have been an offer made. We've got the Nine of Swords, of course, being the anxiety card in the hopes and fears here. I don't think that card will go away in a reading like this in that position. And we've got isolation. Okay, isolation, the isolation of the children I'm feeling. But we also have the Star of Hope and the importance of keeping that hope there. And we've got justice, hope that justice will be done. So this reading is suggesting that there have been those that have profited from someone's grief. We've also got secrets being revealed. There's some kind of truth needing to come forward. So I'm feeling that in time the whole story will come out. I'm just going to ask why, what was behind the policy, because that might get us closer to the truth. And then we'll finish with asking, are they going to be okay? I've said before that I feel that this is one of the darkest chapters in America's history in modern times. I really do. We've seen some pretty horrible things coming out, particularly around racism, deaths in custody, black deaths in custody. We've seen some horrible things around the world, including in Australia too. But the children in cages, the ripping away of children from their parents, I think has to certainly, because it's children, innocent, vulnerable children who have been impacted, I feel really will go down in the annals of history as an appalling policy by the Trump government. Okay. What is behind this immigration policy of Donald Trump's? What is behind the immigration policy of Donald Trump's? All right, so we've got the Four of Cups. We've got disappointment. You know, can it be vindictiveness? Can it be the collective dysfunctional personalities that are crafting these inhuman policies? Can it be that? No, we've got a monetary aspect here. We've got reevaluation of someone's goal. Okay, so I feel it's a political motivation here as well as a financial one. The Seven of Cups, it is a political motivation here. This is a betrayal for political ends. Now, I just also, sorry about that. I just want to mention that one of my viewers sent me a Noam Chomsky link where he explained quite nicely what is going on in America's politics at this point in time. The thing that struck me, I mean, I obviously agreed with everything he said. There were other aspects to the narrative that I would have added, and you would have added too. He doesn't think Russia is so important, but I tend to think that the Russian interference actually is, because it goes to the Republican Party and the influence and impact of money, particularly dark money, foreign money in sovereign elections. So I don't think that point can be understated. But one of the things that struck me when he spoke was that he really, I felt, accurately described the Republican Party, and you can apply it to conservative parties today in one form or another, depending on where they are in that spectrum, how far right they lean. But he described the Republican Party as having really its base is the moneyed elite. So that is the traditional Republican base, the big business. He talks about the disenfranchised in the red states, the workers, the unemployed, etc., who were disenfranchised, weren't listened to, and then over the years kept fielding these candidates that were moving further and further to the right because they wanted to shake up the system. So then entered Donald Trump. He as the perfect candidate that was supposed to shake up the system, turn it on its head. But Donald Trump came to as a answer to the Republicans because he not only took care of the base, the real Republican base, through the tax cuts, the moneyed elite, making it, deregulating things, making it doing the big corporations' business. But he was also able to appeal to this disenfranchised base as well, who were not traditionally Republican base, who wanted things to be turned up on its ear. And Chomsky says that he does this really well. He plays to both, and it's quite skillful, he said. So if we put that in mind, when we see the kind of, I don't even have a word for it. Is it cynicism? I don't know. When we see that kind of manoeuvring here for political ends, and obviously at the end of the day to serve whom? It's not to serve the disenfranchised worker who's getting their healthcare taken away, who's, obviously, big factories are not going to be coming back. They're getting their Medicaid, I think, is it? They're, the tariffs are hitting them the most here in those red states. It's not really to serve their interests; it's to serve the interests of the big money donors, the big money base of the Republican Party. So when we see that, we understand that separating children from their parents is something that goes naturally in step with that. It plays to the base, and it also gives business something as well. It really sets up almost an industry. Hence, we have people like John Kelly sitting on the board of the corporations or the businesses that are running these detention camps. And that is why, in the annals of history, this will go down as one of the, the most shocking of examples of the Trump regime. So we have it as the foundation of our reading, the Seven of Swords, the theft and the betrayal. the betrayal of those children, the betrayal of everything that is decent. There are other ways to formulate and craft a humane and compassionate immigration policy, and to actually go into the countries where the asylum seekers are coming from and help those countries so that the asylum seekers would not be forced to flee. That's the kind of policy that, we would like to see. In the past, we've got the Knight of Wands. This is an inspired idea. We will do two things. We will throw red meat to our base, and we will help big business. So they're the two things that Trump does. The Three of Pentacles. It is a business contract, a business proposition for the Trump government, creating that industry. Interesting, the Ten of Swords here as the immediate future. I would have naturally thought that might be Trump, but I feel this is the profiteering off other people's rock bottom. When other people are at rock bottom, there's a buck to be made, to put it crudely. Right now, though, we've got the Queen of Cups coming forward, suggesting there's more to be revealed on this story. Now, we know that they're before the courts. We know the judges are actually being quite tough here, and ruling that all of these children must be reunited with their parents. And the environment around is that the reaction and the aversion to what's occurred here is quite strong, because we've got the Chariot. The hopes and the fears. It's interesting, this card. The Hierophant, for me, tends to be the government, but this is a government without, in this particular deck, whose face is masked, who can't see, who's not talking. This is a government who's turned their blind eye. And if we look at what's at the bottom of this card, we've got people chained at the feet of the Hierophant. Now, the card that comes up so often with the Republicans is the Magician card. And we asked what was behind this policy. It is, again, manipulation. It is more of the same that we've seen for the last 2.5 years. This is actualizing something into reality. So if you take the idea that I'm going to throw meat to my base, I'm going to provoke racism, I'm going to help big business, and I'm also going to, there's another aspect here that I want to talk about, and that is the changing demographic of American society. Now, traditionally, they may not vote for a far right-winged government, the majority I'm talking about. And so stemming the tide of immigration here, again, preserves this, in Australia, appallingly so. We had the White Australian policy at one point in our history, in our immigration history, where only people from England and Caucasian backgrounds would be allowed in. And it's a little bit like this with this magician. This magician's operating on a number of levels here. The ultimate game here is also to start to turn back the tide of a changing demographic. The Ten of Pentacles, again, this is tied up in the dynastic wealth here that is such a feature of the Republican base. And income sources, so yeah. So again, this is a very important aspect of the immigration policy, new income sources, and again, potentially money news, businesses making money off what has become an industry. So, letting parts of, it's not border control, but the massive amounts of government contracts that would stem and flow from the immigration policies um, is an industry in itself. So, cruelty, profiteering, meeting the needs, satisfying the Republican base at both ends of the spectrum. And it originated from a disappointment in previous policies, immigration policies, and a re-evaluation. And for some, like Miller, it was quite an inspired project for him, because someone like Miller is not just profiteering; he's actually more interested in the racial aspects of immigration, in trying to keep America, or not keep America, but trying to restore America's, I don't know what you would call it. I mean, go and have a look at Hitler and his policies on the supremacy of the Aryan race, and you'll get close to Stephen Miller. So, are these children going to be reunited? Are these children going to be reunited? I feel that if we were to, and I think probably if you want to lift yourself, I think the media doesn't cover a lot of this stuff now. They're covering this endless cycle of Trump speaking on the phone to Putin for an hour and a half, Pompeo going to Russia. It's just this reactionary stuff that Trump is using to deflect, and he's controlling the news cycle. But if you were to dig around, perhaps in the regional media, you might find some more positive stories of those that are going out of their way to help. You might find those Democratic representatives who are visiting these camps. You might find the Amnesty International and the various advocacy, asylum seeker, justice groups and organisations have multiple cases before the courts. You would find all that if you looked for them, and there will be many examples of that. I'm unaware of the Democrats' immigration policy, but somebody must be saying something around helping these countries, not provoking wars, not driving asylum seekers to the American border, but actually helping these countries so that people want to stay in their own country. So let's have a look at this, at whether these children will be reunited. Will these asylum seekers, will these children, these young children, the judge has said every last one has to be reunited, but of course there are news reports that some have been lost. Will they be reunited with their parents? The children in cages. Okay, the children in cages. Again, we've got the disappointment card here, the Four of Cups, suggesting that there's been loss. The challenge to that loss is the actual work that is going on at this present time to reunite these children. We've got the foundation of the reading, things happening quite quickly. So, as I said, the efforts to reunite these children are really strong. They're coming forward quite strongly at this point in time because of the judgment that has been on this whole matter. Such widespread condemnation. So we've got the Ace of Pentacles again in this reading, this particular context, because context is everything with tarot. We've got potentially new starts here. So will they be reunited? It's suggesting that they will, but the signifier card is suggesting there is some loss as well. The Queen of Cups here. coming forward in the immediate future, suggesting support for these children, the children in cages. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's a waiting for results, and that is connected with the Ace of Pentacles. So I feel that there's some trouble, and I think there is some trouble finding all the parents here, tracking them down. However, the atmosphere around is quite hopeful. The hopes and fears, we've got this reuniting as the hope, as a very strong hope coming forward. But we have fighting and factionalism around this issue still. It's very much a divisive issue. It shouldn't be. It should be above politics. The children in cages should be seen for what they are, a very cruel aberration in America's history. And then we've got the Page of Swords suggesting that the fighting is actually designed to obstruct the truth here. So imagine if you could see the notes and the memos on Miller's and Bannon's policy to begin with. Imagine if you could get a record of those at the Republicans when they were briefed on this policy. The lack of dissension, the lack of standing up. There's suggesting there's so much more to come out on this issue, and it will, I feel, because we've got the Six of Pentacles, which is returning to the past, returning to a more stable time. And this is also reunions with self, and in this instance I feel it's reunions with the children and their parents, and what's hidden from our view are new starts. So I feel it's there's been a lot of truth buried around this children in cages, and I feel that there's a lot to come out, and I feel that people are now actively trying to bury that truth. It's suggesting here that attempts to reunite these children are quite strong, and they're trying to be expedited. Your courts are trying to expedite this, and there's this support for these children. People are trying to work hard to reunite them, so that is good because of the the force, the sheer force of the judgment that came down against the Trump government. However, there's always a however, isn't there? This card is the signifier card, is suggesting that there has been some, or there will be some disappointment here. That while some may be reunited, efforts to reunite others are actually taking quite a bit of time. So, children in cages, did you ever think that you would see such a thing? A lot more to come out on this story, and it will. When there's a change of government, it will come out. There'll be records, there'll be investigations, I feel. When we return to a saner, more stable political time, not just in America, but in across the world generally. So I'll leave that there. Viewers, thank you very much. I hope you... it's not a reading you would enjoy. It's not really a reading that I enjoy doing. I don't. It's just a little bit distressing, I think. But there's information coming forward there, and in some cases it's actually quite optimistic. So I'll leave that reading there, and hopefully it can calm some people down a little bit, because there's a lot of distressed people over this issue that have come through my feed and my channel, and the humanitarian aspects of people's characters have been activated, and as I said, a lot of distress around it. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in.